DBQ, how to, walk through, woohoo! I'm going to walk you through how to properly get started on your first DBQ, and you will use this information for every other DBQ that you use. The question that you have to answer, and as you're working your way through it, keep it in mind the whole time. Classical Athens and Han China, how great were the differences? That is the question that you ultimately have to answer satisfactorily in order to get a good grade on this FRQ. And this is an FRQ, it's a free response question because you are self-directed in how you answer the question. There's really not a right or wrong answer unless you say purple because aliens love Hitler or something. That's not going to work. But really you have two options in answering it. You can either say classical Athens and Han China had a lot of differences, such as X, Y, and Z. Or you can say classical Athens and Han China were actually quite similar by characteristics X, Y, and Z. That's the important thing for you to keep in mind is you're going to answer that question one way or the other. You can't have any mushy middle. This is to be used primarily by students of World History, AP, and Northside ISD. There's my disclaimer. So the first thing we're going to do, before we even start thinking about writing the response, you have to look at the documents. The question is, how great were the differences? So let's look at the documents and see what we can use to compare or contrast the two. So start with the Persian chart. Use political, economic, religious, social, intellectual, artistic, and maybe near geography to set up the categories by which you're going to compare or contrast them. You're going to group the documents then. So pick the categories after you read through, like we did in class, which categories you'll use. And in this case, you only need to have three because there's only 3 body paragraphs, but I'll talk about that in a bit. But read through the documents and figure out, is this a political document? Is this artistic? Is this a scientific discovery that's intellectual? Is this something to do with social structure? Figure out what the document is and then group it. That's just the first start. You don't have to really read the whole document. You can usually look at just the title, maybe a caption or something like that, and it can tell you. Or if it's a picture, that's obviously artistic. So we're going to group them first. The next step is to analyze the documents. This is where you've already skimmed the documents to figure out what category they go in. And if you didn't, pause the video right now and do that right now. I'll wait. So, okay, you're back. So what we're going to do next is analyze. This is where we read every individual document a little more in depth and try to ask ourselves, what's the important information or some good detail from this? And I got a little clip that I'm going to play for you that will hopefully help you remember the 2 questions that you should always ask yourself anytime you do any freak writing. Remember, FRQ, Mr. Behnke calls it freak. Any sort of freak writing, ask yourself, and so what? So once you finally run out of answers to the questions and so what, that's pretty much the body paragraph. You're done. But get the important detail, the important fact about Han China and about classical Athens, and give as much background information, show as much analysis as you can. And the analysis comes from asking yourself, and so what? So after we've analyzed, that's what the document analysis sheet is for. Then we're going to make the thesis. Don't bother pausing and trying to write this down, copying word for word, because I know what I wrote, and I wrote garbage. This isn't a very good first sentence because I want to leave it to you. But what I wanted to demonstrate here is the words in red. We have our 3 categories. A really good thesis that you can use to start is answer the question, there were many differences, and then tell me some of the differences. Like politically, with China was this way and Athens was that way. Socially, Athens was this way and China was that way. And artistically, Athens was this way, China was that way. That's pretty much the intro paragraph. Even though it's only 1 sentence, you can break it up as much as necessary, but that's a good thesis. It's setting out kind of a roadmap. Here's what my whole response is going to be. So from there, you can get into the writing of the body paragraphs. Now, before we get there, though, we're going to look at the documents. I'm going to take you through the skeleton of the response at the end of this video, towards the end of this video. But first, we'll just go through document by document, and I'm just going to show you the document, and then I'll let you pause it. I'll let you, like I'm controlling you or something. Pause the video so you can take a look at it, and then look at the content notes. The content notes are simply there to help you better understand the documents. But what I would like for you to do first is, on your own, either pull it up on your computer or just look at this video, look at the documents and try to answer the questions that go along with it, the scaffolding questions if you haven't done so, and try to do the document analysis. And then press play and look at the content notes and see if what you think about the document, the way you analyzed it, matches up with some of the tips and information and the background knowledge from the content notes. So you'll see what I mean as soon as we check document 1 out. Now this is why I say you might want to pull it up on your computer, because this might be a little bit tough to see. If you remember looking at it in class, maybe you already had it analyzed and you did the scaffolding questions, and that's all fine. but maybe pull it up off of my website and take a look at it nice and close. So this is document 1 showing us the maps of Athens, or ancient Greece, and China. So pause it, analyze it, think about it, and then unpause. And you're back. So here's the content notes. This is what I mean. This is a lot of extra information for only 2 maps, but it's trying to give you some kind of context. We're looking at 2 very different places, Athens and China, in terms of geography. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're very different when it comes to politics, economics, religion, social structure, intellectual achievements, or artistic achievements. So the maps are just showing us their geography, and we can draw certain conclusions from that, like the fact that Greece was made up of city-states. That we can see that China is huge, or the empire is huge compared to Athens. So think about that in terms of your own analysis. Then we move on to document 2. This shows us about Athens and the population distribution. This isn't really we don't want to say this is the social structure or the population pyramid, but we could make one off of this, where the free male citizens are the ones at the top of the pyramid, and slaves are at the bottom of the pyramid. And then we see Aristotle has a very interesting take on masters and slaves. But these numbers might be helpful in making a comparison or a contrast between the 2. So pause here, analyze, scaffolding questions, so on, and then unpause. And you're back. Here's the content notes on document 2. Now document 3, Han China's population distribution. Same kind of thing. You might be able to make a population pyramid out of this, and you can show similarities. They both had a social structure. They both had the citizens, or the ruling class at the top, and they had the working class at the bottom. That could be a similarity. Or you could point out that Athens had citizens, a small number of citizens. They had slaves. Women weren't included in the power structure at all. So whatever analysis you want to make, do that now. And then here's the content notes that might help you understand it a little bit. Document 4, Pericles, the famous funeral oration, which we saw in class, the writing by Thucydides. He talks about what their form of government is. Now, I mention this because this might be one of the ones you put into politics because it deals with religion. If you have your 3 categories already set, probably document 4 will be in the politics one. That's entirely up to you, though. Document 4, content notes. Document 5, again, government in Athens, so this would be another political one, possibly, but once you read through it, you might be able to put this one in politics and the other one maybe in culture, or however you decide to categorize it. And then the content notes, which I will make bigger for you because it's kind of small. Document 6, this is the Chinese mandate of heaven, which it does say heaven. Do not use this as a religious belief, because it's the only one you would see, and it's not really dealing with religion, but more dealing with power and the justification for power. And the content notes. Now document 7. This is, you notice it has the old spelling of Qin dynasty, but then Han is what we're really paying attention to here, and it's talking about the government. Here are some content notes for you. Here. Document 8, Pericles talking about what a good citizen is, and this might be a category where instead of being in the Persian chart, you might have made one about citizenship or citizenry or the makeup of the citizen, something like that. And maybe you included the population counts in that. You might include this document, but again, the categories are entirely up to you. Now, document 8, content notes. Document 9, it's a little bit tougher to see this, but that's why I say you should have the document up on your own, maybe have it on a smart device, or if you printed them out for something, or if you asked me, I might have given you a copy. But here's some content notes on document 9. Document 10, Confucius on the individual and the state. So this could be possibly something you include with some sort of citizenship or citizenry. Basically, what is a person's role in the society and government? And here's the content notes for document 10. Document 11. This is obviously Greek artwork, where there's a focus and a importance on the human form, the human figure. And there is the content notes. And document 12, which you might notice a very big difference here between Athens and China. If you can see it well enough on this, or maybe you've got it on before you, the people are really small down here, and the big emphasis is nature. So that might be something you might want to contrast between the two. And there is the content notes. And with that, you should be able to, at this point, categorize and classify. If you haven't done so already, now is the time to do that. I kind of talked you through a couple of them. I didn't give you a lot of detail because this isn't Mr. Behnke writes a DBQ. This is Mr. Behnke tells you how to write. So at this point, now you should just pause the video if you haven't done so already and classify, categorize, group your documents. You come up with the categories. Maybe they'll be in line with the Persian chart. Maybe they won't. You do that now. I'll just wait right here. Okay, so just in case you needed some help, you're not sure what I mean by categorize, classify, group, you're still a little bit lost, you don't know, well, I don't know, document 5, I'm not sure where it goes. This is an example of how you might have grouped them. I don't want to see you do these groups. That's plagiarism. Come up with your own. You might have just said the P for politics out of Persian chart instead of form of government. You might have said this was artistic, and that's fine. These are some examples of the way you can group them. I will point out, though, however, the context one up here, documents 1, 2, and 3, that's just telling us about the population, about the geography. You don't really need to include that as a part of your comparison or contrast, even though I did talk about that a little bit ago, because they're going to have different geography. They're going to have different population structures and roles and responsibilities. I mean, you're dealing with a Confucian society versus a democratic society, so it's a little different. So those 3 documents can kind of be stricken. You only have to use 8 documents in this, so that's kind of helpful. You can get rid of those 3 right away.
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean?
So you're probably wondering, all right, I got that all analyzed, all fine and good, so what am I supposed to do with all this? Well, now you write your response. It seems like there's a whole lot of work, but you notice it's only been 15 minutes, 13 minutes actually of the video. And if you've paused it or whatever, I mean, if you've done it like half an hour's worth of work, you could conceivably start right now. And all you've got to do is the basic response or essay format. Give an introduction. The thesis statement goes in the introduction just to be safe. Just get it out of the way because it's a great roadmap. Sometimes down the line you might just start writing, doing a little brain vomit and getting stuff out, and then by the end you realize, okay, that's my thesis. That's what I think the answer is. And then you put in the conclusion. We're not going to do that right now. Start with the introduction being your thesis. Answer the question. Provide those 3 categories that you came up with. And then maybe add a little bit of detail like I gave you in the example that you are not supposed to plagiarize. The next pieces are the body paragraph where you talk about, let's say, political differences or similarities. Then you talk about the second, in the body paragraph, the second category of similarities or differences. So maybe artistic, and so on and so forth. And then the conclusion, you just restate. Here's what I said, here's why they are different. Or here's what I said, here's why they're the same. So for this DBQ, you're going to use 8 documents. Pretty soon you'll be using all of them, but for now we'll just start with 8. And includes facts from each one. But if you quote them, here's how I would like you to do it. If you take a direct quote, word for word, from Pericles, for instance, put a little document number in parentheses next to it. Or if you use a couple of documents, like what we saw back up here for this one, write the paragraph and then say documents and then put the numbers there. If you have any questions at all, please make sure you talk to me in class. You've got plenty of time to do this. Send me an email. I'll help you out. Hopefully this video did too. Good luck.